Grand Central Terminal is one of the most famous stations in the world. To put it simply, it is huge, taking up 2 million square feet, the equivalent of around 25 Empire State Buildings. It also has 44 platforms, the most of any station in the world. It is also historic, as shown by numerous instances of Beaux Art architecture. But this video isn't about Grand Central Terminal. This video is about the Metro-North Railroad, the primary railroad that operates inside Grand Central. And just like Grand Central, this railroad is pretty interesting. So without further ado, let's talk about the Metro-North Railroad. This is my second attempt in explaining Metro-North. While I do think this video stands in its own right, as this video will go much deeper than the first, I do appreciate it if you watch the original one. But beware, it does contain some mistakes, which is why I am making a second video, to correct the record. The first thing I am going to talk about is the infrastructure. After all, if there are no tracks, there's no service. And Metro-North excels in both, relative to other rail agencies in the area. But first, let me make a distinction. There are two Metro-Norths, the one west of the Hudson and the one east of the Hudson. The lines east of the Hudson is the true OG Metro-North, as all lines are fully operated by Metro-North. This is where the infrastructure and service really excels. The lines west of the Hudson, well, are complicated. They run on New Jersey transit tracks, up to the New York and New Jersey border. Then in New York, those tracks are owned by either freight companies or the New Jersey Transit, but are leased to Metro-North. But does this complication make service run better? Not really, especially when both lines have long single-track sections and when service looks like this. Anyway, Metro-North is actually longer than the Long Island Railroad. That is because, while it doesn't look like it, Metro-North services are extremely long. Each of the three services east of the Hudson are longer than 70 miles long. And there are significant quad-track sections, even all the way out into the suburbs. This contributes to the 787-mile track length of the Metro-North Railroad. The Long Island Railroad, on the other hand, has more branches. But on the LIRR, a lot of them are only double-tracked at best, which in the end totals to 700 miles. Because of this, Metro-North relies heavily on what I called zoned express. Express trains would bypass stations in a specific zone before serving all stations. Slower local trains would short turn just before the express trains make all stops. Usually, those express trains would be diesel trains, and the local trains are electric, as electrification only makes it so far. So from an operational standpoint, it would be much easier if the last electrified stop would mark when express trains make all stops. So let's talk about all of the lines, shall we? Again, just like the LIRR video, I will go by the physical infrastructure, not the service. But unlike the previous video, I will go in depth of how the services operate. Let's start with the lines east of the Hudson River. Our first line is the Park Avenue Main Line. The Park Avenue Main Line starts at Grand Central and runs north. It crosses the Harlem River and ends at Mott Haven Junction. It contains 4 tracks, and just like the LIRR, usually 3 of them are used in the peak direction. At Mott Haven Junction, the main line splits into 2 lines. The first one is the Hudson Line, a 68-mile, 28-station line that runs to Poughkeepsie. And just like its name implies, this line runs along the coast of the Hudson River and shares tracks with Amtrak. This line came from the New York Central's Albany to New York service, which is why there is an abundance of tracks. With these tracks, the Zone Express system begins to shine here. Local trains would usually make all stops to Croton-Harmon and short turn there, while express trains would usually skip all stops to Croton-Harmon, then make all stops to Poughkeepsie. With this knowledge, you can probably guess where the electrified portion ends, and that is Croton-Harmon. The other line that splits at Mott Haven Junction is the Harlem Line. The Harlem Line is a 77-mile, 36-station service and starts in the South Bronx, before running north, serving a large portion of Westchester, Putnam, and Dutchess County, before ending at Wassaic. Because of the length of this line, the Harlem Line has a more complex zone express system. The first type of train makes all stops to North White Plains and short turns there. The second type of train skips all stops to White Plains. then makes all stops to Southeast Station, and short turns there. The final train is a Super Express trains, that makes all stops to Golden's Bridge, except White Plains, and then makes all stops to Wassaic. With this information, you can probably narrow down where the electrified portion ends, and that is at Southeast Station. The final line is the New Haven line. This line branches off of the Harlem line and runs east into Connecticut, and ends all the way in New Haven. Once again, the New Haven line has a zoned express system. Local trains would make all stops to Stamford, though they do skip some stops down in the Harlem line, while express trains skip all stops to Stamford before making all stops. Though some express trains do stop at some intermediate stops, while some local trains skip stops. Then there are the Super Express trains to either Westport or South Norwalk. So make sure you understand which train you are on. And this line is 100% electrified, probably because Amtrak also uses this line for its Northeast Corridor services. But some diesel trains operate on the line, because of the branches the New Haven line has. Speaking of which, the New Haven line has 3 additional branches. The first one is the New Canaan branch, the only electrified branch of the New Haven line. These trains run express from Grand Central, only stopping at Harlem 125th Street, though you may have to transfer at Stamford during off-peak hours. Again, check your train in order to know which stops the train will make. The next branch is the Danbury branch. This branch was electrified in 1925, but electrification was removed in 1961. As a result, you can see old catenary infrastructure along the line. There have been some studies to re-electrify the Danbury branch, but nothing has come from it as of 2024. Its service would run express to Stamford, then make all stops to Danbury. In off-peak, you have to transfer. So again, make sure you know which train you are on. The final branch is the Waterbury branch. As of recording this video, this line is shut down for repairs, and is replaced by shuttle buses. But when this branch was running, it would act just like how the other 2 branches act. Express up to a certain station, which in this case I think it is Bridgeport, then local afterwards. Off-peak, it operates as a shuttle service, requiring an extra transfer. Now that we focus on the lines east of the Hudson, let's talk about the lines that go west of the Hudson. The first one is the Port Jervis line. It starts in Port Jervis and makes this insane U-shape. It then exits New York at around Suffern Station and enters tracks belonging to New Jersey Transit, and travels on either the New Jersey Transit mainline or the New Jersey Transit Bergen County line. This is where the Zone Express of Metro North would come into play, as peak trains would start skipping stations after Suffern Station, except for Ramsey Route 17. Some trains would also make stops at Mahwah and Ramsey stations, while other trains run express earlier. Once again, pay attention to which train you are on. It ends at Hoboken, but commuters heading into Manhattan can transfer at Secaucus Junction for a New Jersey Transit train heading to Penn Station, or at Hoboken for a PATH train heading to World Trade Center or Midtown. The next and final line is the Pascagoula Valley line. This line starts at Spring Valley, where it runs to Pearl River, and exits New York and enters New Jersey. It then runs all the way to Hoboken, where just like the Port Jervis line, one can transfer at Secaucus Junction or Hoboken for Manhattan-bound services. Because this line is mostly single-tracked with a few passing loops, there really isn't much express service. Only one peak train in each direction does a full express run, skipping all stations between Pearl River and Secaucus Junction. Other trains during peak times would make all stops, or skip a random station, or do skip stop. So again, as I said multiple times, make sure to check the stops of your train. Now, let's talk about some stations. Unlike the last video, where all the stations I talked about either had a historical significance or are weird, I am going to talk about the stations that have a more operational purpose. The first one is North White Plains on the Harlem line. This used to be the limit of electrification on the Harlem line until 1984, when electrification extended to Southeast Station. This is operationally significant, as local trains short turn here, and there's a yard to store all of those short turns. Also, this station is pretty decently used. but not as well used as its cousin to the south, White Plains, which is my next station. This station is one of the most used stations on the network, seeing 11,550 people in 2018. For reference, this one station saw more people than the entire Evanston shuttle in Chicago in the same year. But anyway, because of this massive ridership, all trains would stop here, even the express trains going to Southeast and Wassaic. The next station is none other than Southeast Station. Located on the Harlem line, this is where the next batch of trains short turn. Mostly because, as I said earlier, this was where electrification ends. And just like North White Plains, immediately north is a yard for all short-turning trains. But unlike North White Plains, the line immediately narrows to single track. Because of the service, or lack thereof, this is why ridership immediately drops after Southeast Station. Then there's the aforementioned Croton-Harmon Station on the Hudson line. And just like Southeast Station, this is where electrification ends, and where local trains short turn. A yard adjacent to the station handles the short-turning trains. Because of this location, Croton-Harmon is one of the most used stations in Metro North. Not at White Plains level, but enough to be in the top 10. The final station is Stamford. Located on the New Haven line, this is a major transit hub, seeing 15,000 boardings in 2018. This makes it the most used station outside of Grand Central. Because of this, many local trains would short turn here, while express trains would stop here. Finally, let's talk about the future. The only rail expansion project in New York City that is under construction is a Metro North project. It is none other than the Penn Access project, which really isn't a rail expansion, but more of an infill stations project. But because of this project, there is the potential of through running. While I did talk about through running in a previous Metro North video, I would like to expand on that. If I were to through run trains into Penn Station, I would like the ETA's idea on joining both Metro North's New Haven line and the Port Washington branch of the LIRR into a single line, through Penn Station and out onto New Jersey Transit. This project is not going to be easy. We have to account for different electrification systems. There isn't political will for different rail agencies to work together, nor for different state governments to work together. And finally, we need to fix the existing North River tunnels, which thankfully is being done by the Gateway program. But through running will be worth it. Hundreds of thousands of people in New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut will be connected by this one line, making tri-state travel much easier. And with new infill stations like Northern Boulevard and Broadway, Elmhurst, and Maspeth, it will connect to the existing subway network, thus connecting even more people. Speaking of the subways, it can also serve as a proper relief line to the overcrowded 6 and 7 trains. So yes, there are challenges to through running, just like there are challenges to every single rail proposals. But the benefits more than outweigh the negatives. All in all, Metro North, just like the LIRR, is a very extensive system. This explainer just scratches the surface of what is actually there. If there are any Metro North rail fanners that would want to add more, please do so in the comments below. And with that, this marks the end of this video. If you like this video, consider liking and subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video.